transforms the love of the individual to a cosmic love, which prepares for the experience of the constant love of Allah, which sustains all beings. We see the doctrine of Fana Fi al-Rasul articulated again in the later 18th century work, Ilm al-Kitab, of the Naqshbandi Sufi and poet Khwaja Mir Dard, who writes, quote, "And since the Prophet is an intermediary, wasta, between human beings and God the Exalted, Fana Fillah is impossible without the Fana Fi Rasul. Thus the Murshid, the spiritual guide, is an intermediary and a means of connection, wasila, between the Ummah and the Holy Prophet. In every Sufi tariqah, according to the masters of the spiritual path, there has been determined to be three types of fana. Firstly, Fana Fi Shaykh, secondly, Fana Fi Rasul, and thirdly, Fana Fillah. Proximity, drawing nearer, qurb, to Allah will not be achieved by the spiritual aspirant, the salik, without going through these three fanas." Thus writes Khwaja Mir Dard. Now I would like to discuss some practical aspects for achieving Fana Fi Rasul based on the writings of the Sufis. In Tasawwuf, the utmost level of love and devotion for the Holy Prophet is achieved through following both the Sharia and the Tariqah. In the Islamic intellectual, practical, and spiritual disciplines, such as calligraphy and traditional writings, one praises the Holy Prophet and may even recite his virtues, li fada'il, all of the various ways in which Muhammad, may peace be upon him, is the most superior being in all of creation, spiritually, morally, and physically. And we had the example of the Turkish calligraphic tradition of writing the Hilyat, the virtues of the Holy Prophet. Why is this a practice towards the Fana Fi Rasul? In one of his small treatises called Qab Qawsain, Abd Karim Ajili writes that doing practices such as reciting the virtues, the fada'il of the Holy Prophet enables one to picture the physical form of the Prophet as a preliminary to having the vision of the Holy Prophet, which represents the attainment of the supreme happiness of being one of the companions. A hadith mentions that a person does not have faith until he loves Muhammad, peace be upon him, more than his own self, his money, and his children. Jili writes, "If you do not yet have this level of love, you must constantly ask God's forgiveness, for example, with the zikr of Astaghfirullah. You must remember the Holy Prophet, demonstrating proper respect for him, doing what he commanded and avoiding what he forbade. In other words, following the Sunnah and the Sharia." Jili writes, "If you do this, perhaps, inshallah, you will be gathered with him on the day of judgment. For he himself has said, quote, a person will be with the one he has loved." On the theme of praising and remembering the Prophet, an Urdu poet has said, "Bandagi ka husn barkar, had be had ho gaya, hamd karte karte, hamd se Ahmad Muhammad ho gaya." That was actually by a poet. I was just in India and I traveled around asking people about Fana Fi Rasul. So somebody told me this poem. Since I didn't say who said it, it's a poet called Kaif Tonki from Tonk in Rajasthan. So it's his couplet. In English, by constantly, In English, as the beauty of servitude has increased, all limitation has been transcended. By constantly praising the Prophet, Ahmad has become Muhammad, the one who is much praised. Also, we may cite on the theme of, the practice, how to achieve this high level of love, We have in the Quran the evidence for the practice of Durood Sharif, the ayah that was already cited. In Allah wa malaikatuhu yusalluna ala nabi ya ayyuhalladhina amanu salla alayhi wa sallimu taslima. And this practice, this was another conversation I had about the Durood and the Fana Fi al-Rasul. This spiritual practice is a practice, it's talked about Allah and His angels are sending Durood. So we human beings, if we are doing this practice, we are participating in this, very highest act of worship. So how much this will get, us closer to the high degree of love and devotion, mashallah, we can have this assembly and get some of those spiritual, benefits. Jili further mentions, among other ways to cultivate spiritual attachment to the Holy Prophet, is calling to mind his image if you have seen him in a dream, mashallah. But if you have not yet seen him in a dream, then send blessings upon him. During your zikr, imagine yourself with him in this life. If you can't do this practice, but you have visited his tomb, you may try to recall the image of the gunbad, of the tomb, in your mind. This is Jili is writing these practices. Another form of establishing attachment or connection to the Holy Prophet, may peace be upon him, is by recognizing that he is the barzakh between the two sides of existence, the eternal and the created. Actually, this book of Jili that I am quoting from is called the Qab al-Qawsayn. So the Sufi explanation of the two bow length has to do with the idea of the Holy Prophet as a connection between the worldly existence, the physical existence, and the spiritual reality. So the barzakh, recognize that the Holy Prophet is barzakh between the two sides of existence. This is associated with the image of the Qab al-Qawsayn, the two bow length, in the Quran. Quote, he drew near and suspended and was two bow lengths away or closer. The imagery, and you find this in many of the Sufi texts, the imagery of a circle with a line going through the middle. And this is a symbol actually for the two bow lengths. The idea is that you have two bows against each other, and the two strings of the bows are the barzakh in between them, this connection. And concentration on the Holy Prophet and devotion to him symbolizes this possibility of mediating, of receiving the spiritual benefits from the one side, drawing them into this other existence. In other words, the connection between the outer and the inner, the zahir, the batin, the spiritual reality, the worldly reality. And we might also say that this is a symbol for the relationship between the Sharia and the Tariqah and the Tasawwuf, because the string of the two bows that are together represent balance between these two. The idea of the bow, it shouldn't be too tight, it shouldn't be too loose. So there is a kind of spiritual cultivation in Tasawwuf of maintaining that balance between the two, and indeed in all activities one should strive for that. In conclusion, I hope I have demonstrated the continuity of the role of the Holy Prophet, may peace be upon him, in Sufi thought as a means to arriving at the highest levels of spiritual perfection. The particular formulation of Fana Fi al-Rasul may have been refined and further elaborated in Sufi texts over time, but a consistent theme is the necessity to discover, insofar as one can, the aspects of divine love and mercy reflected through the presence of the Holy Prophet and through following his guidance at both the levels of the outer law, the Sharia, and the inner love, which attracts to the path of spiritual perfection. And the poem of Maulana Rum on the subject of Fana, this is in Persian. Hich kas ra ta nagar